Well, good morning. Good morning. My name is Willie Lawson. This is the Morning Report. The Morning Report is a production of fightbackmedia.com, 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 and fightbackmediatv.com. All right. At the beginning of COVID, I was one of the people who said, or maybe only said it in my house, that if this thing becomes an industry, we are never going to be done with it. If it becomes an industry, we're never going to be done with it. And then we started seeing hospitals get extra money when they had COVID cases or COVID deaths, even, or anything that could be labeled a COVID death. Somebody who died in a motorcycle accident who had COVID death, more money for the hospital. And this went on and on. People who were shot, died of a gunshot wound to the head, but they had COVID death, government order check. It became an industry. And now that we are 3 years removed from the beginning of that, maybe 2.5, 3 years removed from the beginning of that, the things that we said here on the Morning Report, things that we said in Fight Back Media, Paul and I, Paul Swanson, paulswanson.com, go to paulswanson.com. It's starting to be, it's funny. My message to you during this time is keep your powder dry and just wait. The truth has a tendency to fall out, and it's happening faster and faster. We said that there would be waste and fraud and all this stuff surrounding COVID, and there is. And there is. COVID-19 related spending resulted in what the Associated Press is calling the greatest grift in U.S. history, which makes sense because this, in my opinion, is one of the greatest scams perpetrated against society in 1,000 years. According to a new report, fraudsters may have stolen more than $280 billion in COVID relief funding, while another $123 billion was either wasted through mismanagement or misappropriation, which was bound to happen, right? And the combined total of what now stands at 10% of the $4.2 trillion the government spent on COVID relief is bound to grow as more schemes are uncovered. Yeah, this is continuing. How did it all happen? According to the investigators and analysts, because the government was looking to disperse so much so quickly, proper oversight was not conducted, and there were far too few restrictions on applications. Early on, for example, the government did not utilize the Treasury Department's do not pay database. Well, the Treasury Department, I didn't even know had a do not pay database, but it makes sense, right? To prevent money from going to felons, debarred contractors, people convicted of tax fraud, etc. Spending a small amount of time doing some due diligence could have rooted out thousands of ineligible applicants. Said Michael Horowitz, the U.S. Justice Department Inspector General and chair of the Federal Pandemic Response Accountability Committee. Here's what he said. Most of the looted money was swiped from 3 large pandemic relief initiatives launched during, now, and this is true, this is not, now y'all can get mad at me, this is not anti-Trump. This happened in the Trump administration. So you have to go ahead and put the responsibility where it's supposed to be. These 3 large pandemic relief initiatives launched during the Trump administration and inherited by President Joe Biden. Okay. Those programs were designed to help small businesses and unemployed workers survive the economic upheaval caused by the pandemic. Let me edit that. Caused by the government response. Here's what he said. Back to what he said. The pilfering was wide, but not always as deep as the eye-catching headlines about cases involving many millions of dollars. But all the theft, big and small, illustrates an epidemic of scams, swindles, at the time America was grappling with overrun hospitals. We didn't have overrun hospitals. We didn't have overrun hospitals. This is part of the scam, right? School closures, school closures by governmental agencies that didn't need to happen, shuttered businesses that did not need to happen. So much federal emergency aid has been never has so much federal emergency aid been injected into the U.S. economy so quickly. The largest rescue package in American history. U.S. Comptroller General Gene Dorado told Congress. The enormous scale of that package has obscured multi-billion-dollar mistakes. When the pandemic struck, the agency was assigned to manage two massive relief funds, the COVID-19 Economic Injury Disaster Loan and Paycheck Protection Programs. The PPP, people got all those PPP loans, and we're finding out that everybody got a PPP. Because out here, where we are, outside the Beltway, PPP was free money. PPP was free money. So you said that you had a company, that you had Fight Back Media was a company. You know, you had a DBA, so you had a company, right? And you had to make sure that you got to pay all of your employees or employees. So who was the employee? Me, my wife, my son, Paul, his wife, right? That was Fight Back Media. We'd sign up for a PPP. We didn't, by the way. So don't start on me. We didn't, because what we knew is that people would do this kind of stuff. Because here's the deal. Here's the deal. The deal is that people are basically horrible. They are. People suck, and they are basically terrible. And if left to their own devices, will do terrible things. So none of this should surprise anybody, which would swell to more than $1 trillion. Small Business Administration's workforce had to get money out the door fast to help struggling businesses and their employees. COVID-19 pushed the SBA's pace from walk to an Olympic sprint. Between March 2020 and the end of July 2020, the agency granted $3.2 million in COVID-19 economic injury disaster loans, totaling $167 billion. 3.2 million loans. Of course, it was going to be jacked up. First of all, this is government doing this, right? And at the same time, implementing the huge new PPP, Paycheck Protection Program. In the haste, guardrails to protect federal money were, okay, now when these people say federal money, not federal money, so the federal government doesn't have any money. It's your money. Okay? Were dropped. Prospective borrowers were allowed to self-certify that their loan applications were true. Is this true? Yep. Right? The CARES Act also barred the SBA from looking at tax return transcripts that could have weeded out shady and undeserving applicants. A decision eventually reversed at the end of 2020. Now people started to freak out. That's when these big business owners that were rich had gotten PPP loans, right? If you open up the bank window and say, give me your application and just promise you're really who you say you are, you attract a lot of fraudsters. And that's what happened here. The Small Business Administration Inspector General Hannibal Mike Ware said his staff has a backlog of more than 80,000 actionable leads to investigate, which is enough work to keep them busy for the next 100 years. Death by 1,000 cuts might be death by 80,000 cuts for them, always said. But about the workload Ware's office has, it's just the magnitude of it the enormity of it. The budget deal President Biden signed earlier this month includes one measure that takes back 20 a mere 27.1 billion in unspent COVID relief funds from multiple organizations. And people fought them on that. People were it wasn't just individuals. Don't get crazy. It was municipalities, cities, states using COVID dollars to build stuff, roads and community centers and all sorts of stuff they were using COVID dollars for. It'd become an industry. It'd become a big pot of money that everybody thought they could get some from. Administered by the federal government. What have we learned? If you want something done badly, let the federal government do it. If you want fraud, if you want waste, let the federal government do it. If you want it jacked up, let the federal government do it. My name is Willie Lawson. This has been the Morning Report. The Morning Report is a production of fightbackmedia.com, 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 and fightbackmediatv.com. Till we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sakes, y'all take care of yourself. We will see you when we see you. Bye-bye now.